All right, welcome to episode 4. This is Chris Cicchinelli, and we are talking everything high-intensity tactics for growth. That's right, HIT. The other day, I had the awesome opportunity to interview Andrea Owen. She's the author of How to Stop Feeling Like Shit. I kind of like that title, right? She's also that life coach that also is on the same page with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that are out there. And she's talking about how she wants you to live your best life. Let's talk to Andrea and see how she's talking about not how to feel like shit. So tell me a little bit about, give me a little bit of your background if you don't mind, and how are, kind of you started your business, the things like that you're doing.
Well, it's sort of a funny, not funny story.
Yeah.
And I found out about life coaching in the early 2000s. And I thought to myself, this is an interesting profession. You mean, because I thought about being a therapist and it didn't feel right. But I thought if I could help people live their best life and get them from where they are now to where they truly, truly want to go and help them with their excuses and all of that fun stuff, sign me up. And it's funny, my husband at the time, it was my first husband, I said out loud to him, but I think in order to be a really great life coach, it would be helpful if you had some good life experience. And at the time I was only like 26. So be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
So a few years later, we had been married for a couple of years and we're talking about trying to conceive our first child. And he had an affair with our neighbor that lived across the street and got her pregnant.
Okay. Yeah.
And we got divorced. We had been together for 13 years at that point. So it was devastating.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my entire family. And it was horrible. And it wasn't like, I'm so sorry, Andrea, can we work this out? I made a mistake, which I might have said okay. It was, I'm in love with this other woman. I'm divorcing you. Bye. And so I did what I probably should not have done is I started dating immediately and I met someone whom I thought was Mr. Right, and turns out he was addicted to opiates and I did not know and had lied about being sick with cancer to cover up his drug addiction. So I essentially got conned.
Oh, no.
Emotionally, financially. He just pretty much took me for everything I had, and I found myself lying on my bedroom floor. I feel like so many stories start with that. Like there I was lying in the fetal position, sometimes in the bathroom. Mine was in my bedroom. And I was also pregnant by this man, and he just totally left me, which was the biggest blessing ever. And I found myself, I had quit my job because we were going to move away together. I had gotten out of the lease of my apartment that I loved, and I didn't know what to do. And I was like, well, here's my life experience.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that I really took responsibility for my own life. And with that, I mean, I had blamed everyone else for my problems and my drama. I had put all of my happiness eggs in someone else's basket. And I finally was like, okay, how can I change my own life? Where do I have control of my destiny, of my choices, of my behavior? And I ran with it. So I sort of went on the fast track to personal development. And that was in 2007 that I had that, fetal position on the floor. So, and here I am.
So then you're like, hey, listen, my life was crazy. So I know, look, when people say, you don't know, you probably know.
A lot of people, that's their first impression. Like, who is this white girl with her no problems? And granted, yes, of course, I have a lot of privilege and all of those things, but I was so brokenhearted.
Yeah.
I thought that, like, how am I going to, I remember thinking to myself, can someone die from a broken heart?
Yeah.
That's how brokenhearted I was. And yes, you can change your life, and it really starts with taking responsibility for it.
Okay, let's talk about responsibility, because I know that, as a life coach today, that is a big, it's a big word. People, when you say responsibility, I think people want to pick and choose their responsibilities or what I'll take responsibility for that, but I'm not going to take responsibility for that. How do you work through when you're coaching and you're talking to your clients? How is it that you're getting them to actually take responsibility in all aspects of their life, good or bad?
I'm big on pointing out what people's choices are. So it's like, if somebody's faced with a difficult situation, I might, and they having resistance, and I tell them, okay, well, ask them, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
If you don't go after this, how might things end up? And just really pointing out the reality of it. And instead of playing that, well, what if, this happens and that happens? Like, there's always a chance that things won't work out.
Yeah.
And trust me, like, I've gone after things and they've flopped and failed. And really, it's also about what I teach people too, and this is what I'm going to talk about today, is resilience.
Yeah.
Because you need to get to a point where you trust yourself enough that you're going to be okay if shit hits the fan. And that it will actually turn out to be, you'll be a better person for it. And I know sometimes when they hear that, you want to punch somebody in the face. Like when you're in the weeds, it's not always like a spiritual moment.
Yeah.
I get that. Timing is everything. But truly, I feel like I went off on a little bit of a tangent here. I like to just kind of point out the obvious to people because we get so up in our heads of the what ifs and the resistance of it. I just point out the obvious and we go from there.
So when you say, kind of trust yourself, I think that too many, and I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs, and I would say that it's so different with female and males, the level of trust that they give to themselves or the permission that they allow themselves. How when you're working with your clients, how do you get them to trust themselves, and especially somebody that has not trusted themselves because of something or someone and what they said to them?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I want to add to what you just said. We live in a culture where as women, we are brought up to feel, the messaging we get is that we're not good enough.
Yep.
And, we're not smart enough, not something enough. And so that conditioning is challenging.
Yeah.
And so it's not that I have some kind of magic wand where I can change someone's core belief system that they have about themselves. They might carry that belief system. But what I point out to people is that it's not about becoming fearless. It's not about, I will do this when I have enough confidence. Just do it anyway.
Yeah.
It's like that famous saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. It's actually a book title. And it truly is about being brave and afraid at the same time. That's where you gain courage, and confidence is on the other side of that. And that's where self-trust comes from.
And I think about it. Last night I did a talk, just the same thing. I did a talk about, 2 4-letter words that motivate us, fear and love, right?
Yeah.
And so we talked about fear being the false evidence appearing real, right? Yeah. That's what it is. And so many people, have the fear of just trusting that they can make the right decision. And we try to instill that with them, and they will give trust to a stranger before they will give trust to themselves that they are capable of doing it. So I do believe, as you're going through this as a business owner, going through your trials, tribulations, how did you earn the trust with yourself as you're sitting there, your life's kind of in a shambles, you're like, oh my God, what's my life become?
Yeah.
How, because of some of the decisions that were happening prior, would probably lead to not being it was probably going to be hard to trust the person that's laying on the floor at that time.
Yes. And gosh, it really was about learning how to trust my intuition. Because I'll be honest with you, Chris, my intuition told me not to marry my first husband. I did it anyway. My intuition told me on the first date with the guy that conned me, I sat across from the table from him, I'll never forget it, at Croce's restaurant in San Diego, and thought to myself, something isn't right with this guy, but I don't know what it is. He seems way too good to be true. He was a David Duchovny lookalike. He was tall and charming and handsome, and it was just a recipe for disaster. And I had to really truly learn to trust my intuition, and that is a huge part of just trust in general, is trusting that gut feeling that we have, because we like to screen it like an answering machine. Like, I don't want that message because this guy's way too good looking, and it can't be right.
This is not going to happen.
No, it must be something else, that gut feeling. And so it really truly was about listening to that voice, and even when I didn't want to listen to it, that to me. And I got the word surrender tattooed on my arm in my own handwriting. It was after my dad died in 2016, because to me, the word surrender is all about, it encompasses so many things, but it is surrendering to life on life's terms and trusting your intuition and truly stepping into the person that you were meant to be and that you already are.
Now, just like anything else, consistency is really the system. Okay, no matter what. I don't care what system you're on in life. If you're on, if it's a weight loss system, or if it's on a time management system, or on a system of being a better human being. Yeah, it's all about the consistency that you put into that. How do you stay consistent on making the promises you hold to yourself? How do you keep those, how do you make sure you're staying on point with that, consistent?
Sometimes I don't. I'll be honest with you. There are plenty of times where, I spent 2 years not that long ago. When did I get back? Where I didn't work out. Yeah. Where I just was like, I hung up my running shoes. I was a triathlete. I'm like, I'm just tired. I'm just done for a little while. And I was really going through this thing with body image and aging and stuff. And I'm like, I refuse to work out until I get to a place where I'm only working out for my health and not just saying that I am. Yeah. And so that is just an example of how I've been inconsistent. However, I feel like as long as you are working on yourself, that's consistency. I don't care if you are switching from like paleo to keto or whatever the newest thing is. I don't care if you listen to Oprah's podcast and then so-and-so's podcast. I just feel like there's so much perfectionism in personal development, especially with women. They're like, I want to do it right. If I fall off the wagon, then just
oh my
fuck
God,
it.
yes. I love the way you said it. Please, why do women think they have to be so perfect? Why? This is the business. I deal with this every day when I travel. 250 days a year. I'm in city after city after city. And they don't, Chris, I just want to get everything put together, detail it out, I want to make sure I have all my little, checklist before I get going, because I really don't want to fail this time. I'm like,
I know what it is. And I don't mean to, get all, feminist cheerleader on you, but I mean, again, like we live in a culture that has the expectations that are put on women, and not that there are a lot of expectations
I agree,
that put on
100%.
Men. Ours look different, they're unique, and we're expected to check off all of these boxes and look amazing while we do it. And I know
you look amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Go
I had my makeup done at the salon. But also what research shows us is that we all have identities that we would never want to be perceived as in all areas of our life. We have ideal and unwanted. So me sitting here in this conference room with you, I want you to perceive me as someone who is experienced and professional and put together. If I feel like I am being perceived in another way, that will send me into a spiral. It's a shame spiral, it's an inner critic spiral. And that really is the root of why so many women are like you just said, I want to check off all these boxes. They're afraid of being seen in an unsavory light. It terrifies us. It's primal. It's like in our biology.
It almost feels like the women entrepreneurs I work with, it almost like they have this scorecard in the back of their head. Like they feel like they're constantly being graded, being scored.
The gig is up.
I'm like, am I doing a good mom? Okay, that's a 7 out of 10. Am I being a good significant other? Oh, that's a 6 out of 10. And I feel like they're constantly, doing that. And so when it comes to things like, say, running or whatever, where they don't have to please anybody except themselves, that goes down to like a 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because it's all this image that they do for everybody else, but when it comes to taking care of themselves, it's like, wait, you know what? I really don't need to do anything for myself because I'm so tired right now because I've done for the other 90 people that are in my world.
And then that leads to burnout and adrenal fatigue and insomnia and anxiety. I talk to so many women who have chronic anxiety, and I know it's because they put self-care the very last thing that they do.
Yep.
And, that they're not embracing their pleasure and doing more things about that. And it's chronic.
Yeah.
And it makes me so sad and gets me fired up. And now I'm starting to sweat.
Well, it's so funny. So, I've been married for like 15 years now, and my wife and I have been together for 17. And she came to me, she's like, hey, self-care is like, it is what I want for 2019. I'm like, what is self-care? I'm like, explain self-care. She goes, well, like when you go golf or you go like take some time for yourself or you go work out in the morning or you go for a run, that's your self-care. I said, I just think that's part of my routine. Yeah. She goes, well, Chris, my routine, I take care of the kids. I'm doing carpool. I'm taking care of this. I've got that. So I'm running our charity. I'm running the foundation. She goes, by the time that I'm done, the last person that's getting any self-care is me.
Yeah.
And so she goes, you know what I'd like to do? I like to start Sundays as Jessica's Self-Care Sunday. I go, honey, you do. Amazing. You should have it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Good for you.
Because at the end of the day, these kids are going to leave us at some point.
They grow up to break our hearts.
And I don't want you and I to look at each other and go, you didn't take care of yourself at all, and therefore you're going to go do like Stella Got Her Groove Back and leave me and be like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have that discussion a lot, and it's true. I just feel like there's not enough time or not enough attention put onto self-care, self-development, and not thinking that they have to be the best at everything or perfection.
At the top, and that word gets thrown around a lot. I think it's sort of a buzzword these days, but and self-care might look different for every woman. And truly, I have a one-on-one client, and she's very similar life as your wife. And she said, you know what I want to do, Andrea? She's like, I want to just go to Home Goods for like 2 hours and just walk the aisles. That's all I want to do. I don't even want to buy anything. So it's like these simple things that people aren't doing to take care of themselves. And I think you made a really good point too. Relationships are all about taking care of each other.
Yes.
And sometimes that is saying, yes, go and do that, instead of, well, what's gonna fall through the cracks with the foundation, and who's gonna pick up the kids and all these things, which I do hear some partners say, and it's so incredibly important. to do that. And oh my gosh, yes, I'm so
All
glad
right,
you said that.
so let's talk about this, because I think that's another good point, because, you know, and again, there's a lot of women doing this by themselves. A lot of entrepreneurs doing it by themselves.
Gosh, yes.
You know, so they're like, man, I don't have somebody at home telling me I should do this. Or they have the other side where they have the significant other
Who's not supportive.
not supportive.
Yikes. Yeah, I know.
How can you, you know, we got bills to pay, we got all this other stuff, and you want me to take care of myself? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and nobody's there to cheerlead. Nobody's there to say it's okay.
Right.
How do they give themselves the permission? How do they become resilient enough to say, you know what, I am going to do this for myself, come hell or high water? Because I don't think that they're like, okay, I'll do it when I get enough time, or I'll do this, you know, when maybe the kids get older, or when they go to school, or whatever. I feel like there's always this rationale of why or when.
It has to become hygiene. Just like you brush your teeth and take a shower and do all of these things that you do just to the basics of taking care of yourself, it has to be like that.
Yeah.
So if your partner is unsupportive, I kind of feel like, well, that's your bigger problem. That's your bigger fish to fry. And I just always ask, like, what is the alternative? The alternative to not doing that, like, look at the long game in this and how this might turn out. Not only are you not taking care of yourself, and it can have long-term effects on your own mind and body, but that in turn will have long-term effects on your relationship.
Yep.
In regards to single parenthood, that is where your village matters immensely. I'm going to talk about this a little bit in my talk, and just your support system matters so much. And I feel like in this culture right now in society, we are so connected with social media, but yet we're still very unconnected.
Oh my God, yeah.
And the women that I work with tend to be so afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
And even just reach out and say, I'm having a really, really hard day. In single parenthood, that's where you need to do it the most. And, you know, anybody who's listening to this, check on your single parents.
Yeah.
See if they need help. And not just like hey, do you need help? It's just like, hey, can I take your kids out for this weekend so you can go to Home Goods for 2 hours?
Yeah, really. I mean, yeah. I think that, you know, you're going to be talking to a lot of leaders today here that are going to have that I don't have a significant other.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure who my village is, because right now I feel like I'm on the island with no village, no villagers. It's my only island I'm on, and the water continues to keep rising.
Yeah.
This is the realization. How does somebody where do they find this resilience? What do they do? Because, you know, my whole thing in business is when we went from $1 million to 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 16 to 32, we went to $250 million. We were never teaching people about selling a product. We never taught them. I mean, yes, we gave them ideas of how to go sell. What were the features and benefits? What were, you know, how this works. How we built the business was teaching people how to sell themselves and how to put back into themselves, and how to make sure that they understand the number one thing that people buy is people buy people, they don't buy product. So a lot of people go, you know, why is this important for me as an entrepreneur, to set this time, to make these things like hygiene? What would you tell somebody like, look, you have to do this if you want to, because the game of life is mental. And if you want to be successful,
Amen.
You have to overcome this mindset of negativity, or the mindset that we put onto us that we can't. Who would we be without the stories we tell ourselves?
It's such a great question to ask. Yes. Amen. I will give a fist pump to that. And I think that people can't be reminded of that enough about it all being a mental game. And I mean, I'm sure that you know this too. We can learn all of the business strategies in the world and have it all in our head and hire all the best people, but if we're not working on ourselves, then we're going to stay stuck in the same patterns over and over again. You know that as well as I do. And truly, what I tell people is, you know, referring back to your question around people being by themselves, and I mean, I hate to say it, but like, there's no other option. Like, you have to learn to ask for help. You have to learn, and you have to get out there. It's friendships. I don't know how male friendships are with y'all, but female friendships are complicated when we get older.
Oh, they are so, oh my, I work with 30,000 of them. It is, I don't know why they complicate these things. Like, I feel like you always have to be on.
Yeah.
And if you say something wrong.
Yeah. It goes back to what I was talking about with those unwanted identities.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to look like the person who screws things up or has problems or struggles or any of those things. And so we put on this sort of armor, if you will, and we go out there and try to be vulnerable, and things don't go that well. what I teach people to do is have resilience. And I'm not gonna lie, like making friends as an adult is awkward. It's a lot like dating. And I'm working with a client right now, and that's part of her homework. That's part of why mostly why she came to work with me, because she's like, I'm 36. I have nothing outside of work, and I'm tired of being lonely. I want to find someone to start dating again and make friends. So a lot of her homework was like, go join this gym. It was like a free trial for a month. Go post on Facebook and find events to go hiking wherever you are. It's like, be proactive about it. They are not going to just fall into your lap. They aren't. All of these amazing women aren't just going to like knock on your door and be like, hey, we heard through osmosis that you want new friends, and here we are. And trust me, I know when we moved from my hometown of San Diego to the state of Utah, for 6 months, I had only lived in one place, and I just thought I would automatically make friends and they would be there, and they weren't. And I was crying to my friend back home, and she's like, well, what have you done to go and make friends? And I'm like, well, I haven't really done anything. I have one friend, it's the lady that does my hair, and that was it. So I started playing roller derby. I started like doing all these things to go, and not all of them were great. I thought I met my team and it wasn't them. And it's like, you have to keep trying and going out there. And actually Bumble, I heard, has as part of their app, it's for friends.
Really?
Yes.
See, and I think so many people don't want to put themselves out there, and they don't.
It's scary.
But hold on, they don't want to put themselves out there because of that. Exactly, the scare. Who told them that rejection or failure? Where did we're only born with two fears: the fear of falling and loud noises. Why are we afraid to put something out on Bumble or where did that come from? It's
biological.
That is crazy.
It's biological. We have an innate fear of being ostracized from a group, as well as being left. I mean, that's indirectly related. It's the same thing. So it becomes safer to shut everybody out, because you get to a certain age, and we've all had the experience of having like the emotional shit kicked out of us. Either by a romantic partner or a friend. We've been betrayed. And women, we don't know how to be friends when we're teenagers and in our 20s. Like, we're crappy to each other. And so we have all this experience in our head, and then we get to a certain age and we're like, screw this. I'm not opening up to anyone again. I saw how it turned out. I got stabbed in the back. This one was a bitch to me, like, blah, 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 blah. So it becomes, in a sense, easier just to shut everybody out. And then that's when they come to work with me, because it just becomes too lonely, because humans were meant to connect with each other, and that's how we thrive. And that is so scary. I get it. But there's really, I wish there was an easier way to do it, but it truly is just about getting out there.
It is. It's about putting yourself out, doing what you need to do. So, all right. So kind of as we kind of wrap this up and kind of getting down to the last question, what do you see? And I always ask this because I think it's important. What do you see this world looking like in the next 5 to 10 years? I talk about this whole podcast is about high intensity tactics for growth, right? And I think if the mindset's not right, if the mindset's not there, which I love that you said, the resiliency, putting yourself out there, these are all things that people can do and utilize in every aspect of the business, because business is holistic. If you're an entrepreneur, it's wrapped in your life 360. What do you see over the next 5 years as entrepreneurs are growing and businesses are out there thriving? How do you see the world?
I think that I love that you said that it's holistic. I always say, if you want a really great personal development workshop, start your own business. That's going to bring out all of your biggest fears, all of your negative self-talk. That's going to put it right there out in front of you. I feel like this is an amazing time for women. I really, really, truly do. And I think that a lot of people are starting to wake up to all of the oppression and, things that are happening, and women are just they're just like, no more, we're done. And we're going to talk about it, and we're going to learn how to communicate with each other. I think that's one of the very most important things, and I'll talk about at my talk a little bit. It's not about confrontation and yelling at people and pointing fingers. It really truly is just about sitting down and having hard conversations with people. And that truly can change everything when we're talking to each other in a kind and compassionate and graceful manner. That can truly, truly change the world. And I've witnessed it in my personal life and with so many people. And to answer your question, to sort of bottom line it, I think that it's just going to look up for women. I really, really do.
So Andrea, if people want to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you? If they sit back and they're like, hey man, I love this. I would love to, maybe she can help me get on Bumble too, or or get me or give me some time in the, walking through, IKEA next time.
Yes,
how would they get a hold of you?
IKEA. Best way to find me is yourkickasslife.com. I love to hang out on Instagram, and you can send me a message there. Same handle, Your Kickass Life.
Your Kickass Life.
Yeah.
Are you leading the Kickass Life now?
I try my best.
Yeah.
Yes, not always consistent.
Yeah. Have you picked up the running again, or are you doing that?
I bought a Peloton bike.
Oh, okay. Good.
Have you heard of it?
I have.
Buy stock in that company. They are going to be huge.
They are.
And I love it so much. I drank the Kool-Aid, and I love it. Yeah, it's easier on my knees too.
Well, hey, thanks so much for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fun.